Yo, 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 how's it going, everybody? Will Curran from Endless Events back here again with another episode of Event Icons. I'm super duper jazzed. I know that's a weird word to say. Jazzed about this week's episode of Event Icons because we have such a cool company here who had such a cool virtual event. Granted, I got to participate in it, so I'm a little biased, but this was just very, very cool. And I think once you hear their story for how they turned a virtual product launch into a hackathon that had thousands of people watching, you're going to be mind blown. So if you're looking for ways to activate sponsors, you're looking for ways to engage your community, this is going to be an episode not to miss. Come and check out this week's Event Icons. Let's hit that intro.
It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of Event Icons.
Presented by Endless Events.
The show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything.
Just go to www.event-icons.com to ask questions.
Our iconic guests will answer them live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better the conversation. So please help share Event Icons
on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com.
Now, without any further delay, this is Event Icons.
All right. Hello, everyone. So as I said, we got a really exciting episode. As always, I don't want to stay here on pomp and circumstance. We got to bring our guests right on in. If you haven't heard of the company called Socio before, you're going to know a lot about them after this, but I have to introduce our first guest who's joined from Socio, Corey McCarthy, the CMO of Socio, also a little bit of the brains behind how we built this marketing campaign and everything like that. Corey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, but real quick, before we bring our next guest, I'm gonna make him hang out in the little background for a quick minute. Tell everyone a little bit about what got you in the events industry and what brought you to Socio, and before you led up to this virtual hackathon that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a part of the events business probably since I think 2000. So a very long time. I was working with Penton Media. I was associate publisher for Lodging Hospitality, one of their portfolio brands. And so we produced a lot of different events. We attended and sponsored a lot of different events, including producing, of course, an old school magazine and a lot of different virtual assets. So one of the things that we did very early on was toy around with a lot of the event technology. So in 2005, we put together our very first virtual trade show. So it was totally glitchy and looked like it was designed in DOS. But I've been part of the event industry ever since, either from the organizer side or on the sponsor side. I've worked for a number of different tech firms as a marketing leader. And so I've had my fair share of experience creating sponsorship opportunities from all sides of the bench. So it's fun to be here with Socio. It plays right into my wheelhouse, and it's an awesome company that's really done some cool things lately.
Absolutely. You guys have definitely done some cool things, and there's going to be a lot to share during this entire episode because I don't think people are ready to hear about like what you guys accomplished. And I'm hoping that some of the audience have already gotten a chance to experience it, but we'll definitely dive in it. Well, I kept the big boss in the background for a split second, but we got to bring him up. Yarkin Sakucoglu. Oh my gosh, I knew I was gonna screw it up on live. Oh my god, Sakucoglu.
Yes, that's
oh my gosh, I was so close. I just totally got tongue tied on there. Yarkin, thank you so much for joining us. You are the CEO and co-founder of Socio. We're so happy to have you here as well. I'm also gonna owe you some Turkish delight after this for slaughtering your last name.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, Will. Very excited to be here.
So Yarkin, obviously Socio is your company. So what brought you to starting this company and co-founding it?
Yeah. Well, there's I believe a very good story behind it. When I was a student at Purdue University, had nothing to do back then with events or event planning. Pretty clueless, to be honest. I found myself in this committee that was planning events for entrepreneurship, and we had this project to plan a 1,500 attendee event in Indiana, in Purdue University, and I found myself in the middle of that, and I loved it ever since. And now we work with 1,000 plus event organizers to help them put on their events, and I mean, I'm loving it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the amount of clients that you guys have to work with right now, I'm not jealous of how busy you guys are right now as well. So, okay. So let's dive into it because, I want to know for everyone a little bit of background, what led to this idea to create this virtual hackathon. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you haven't heard about Socio's Event Hack 2020, give it a quick Google. I'm sure we'll leave it down in the description down below if you're watching the post recording, whatever it may be. But walk us through Event Hack 2020 and how you guys kind of came to the point where you decided to come up with this. So I always been talking a lot to Corey about this. So I'll let Corey kick it off and then tie in Yarkin on kind of where you guys came up with this idea and how did it transform from a product launch to a hackathon?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a really great COO that has ideas that flow daily. And so around the time that we were doing our pivot and our upgrades to our virtual platform, he came to me with the idea to do a hackathon, and he wanted to get a bunch of coders in and actually create a physical, tech product. And it was a great idea, but it wasn't quite right for the timing, and it wasn't really quite right for the industry or what we needed to accomplish. The next day, we decided to really go in deep on a couple of new features, and we decided to rush it and announce the new features within 15 days. So now all of a sudden I had to do a product launch. I had the hackathon idea sitting out there, which to do with just tech folks wasn't going to be quite enough. I've been part of organizations before where the sales and marketing teams get involved with the hackathons from an ideation perspective. And so I riffed on that and pulled together an ideation hackathon for event planners, because the thing that we've been hearing right now is nobody knows how to do a virtual event. It's something that a lot of the in-person event planners just have never had to do. So when we were trying to figure that out, we've really taken a position of thought leadership and wanted to bring many ideas forward at the same time. So we took a look at our customer base, picked our best customers. We took a look at the influencers in the industry. We took a look at some of the really big companies that we've been working with that are out there doing really great things. Pulled them all together. We had 16 people in total. We put them on 4 teams of 4. And with all those bright minds put together, we came away with some amazing ideas, a really fun event that had engagement and energy and a lot of great content at the end of the day that people could grab onto and actually use.
So Yarkin, when you heard this idea, like to do a hackathon to launch the new virtual event platform, like what was your thought process behind it, and how did it kind of like help achieve the CEO's goals for what you were looking to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, during this time, we were also going through this interesting turbulence that the entire industry is going through, right? How are we going to pivot? How are we going to adapt, learn, and change? And I love the idea of an hackathon because it's not only about us as a company coming up with ideas and showing to the event community what we think is the right way to attack this change, but bringing in all these influencers and experts in their fields and creating this collaborative environment where they can come up with these ideas and pitch these ideas and actually allow the listener, right, the event organizers to find those nuggets, right, those amazing ideas that these people are coming up with and actually implement on them immediately. I love the idea of it. I mean, for us, clearly as a software company, we are providing event software, but we want to be so much more than that, right? We want to be the thought leaders and we want to help the community move forward as a whole. So we as a company absolutely fell in love with the idea and really supported it. And I'm very glad it turned out to be what it turned out to be.
Definitely. It was definitely a huge success, I think. Again, I'm not saying that just because I got to hang out with you guys for a little bit of it. But I'm curious to know what were the steps that you guys took? So you had this idea, let's do a virtual hackathon. What was step number 1? And like maybe if you guys just want to quick fire through, what was like the process looking like for deciding to create this? And, it wasn't just like, hey, we'll have a hackathon and boom, it like appeared, right? There was like all these steps and things like that as well. What would that look like?
Yeah, we needed to put together the who, what, when, where, why. So there was a lot of planning behind the scenes that ended up happening. And we also wanted to take a look at our goals. So one of our biggest goals was to accumulate the largest group of people that we possibly could, and put together the greatest piece of content to attract as many people as we could to the event. And then from there, use that as our platform to make the announcement. So we took a look and did a lot of research on people who were really doing some cool things in the event space. And so that's how we found you and a lot of the other people that we pulled in to work with. So bringing in the right people was one of the first steps that we took. And then after we pulled in the right people, we got together a lot of the details around how it was going to work, because a traditional event hack takes place live and it takes place all day. So allowing the teams to get to know one another, to go through that storming and norming phase wasn't something that we were going to be able to accomplish in a virtual setting. And so we needed to think about it a little bit differently. The event took place on a Wednesday. We set up time for all of the hackers to get together and officially meet each other the Friday before. So we got everybody into a Zoom. We made the announcement, hey, this is what we're going to be doing. We announced the teams. We allowed all of the teams to get together in breakout rooms to pick team names. We gave them parameters about what types of events they were going to hack, what industries they were going to target, so that they were starting to put together their framework. They came back in and they announced the team names and what they were going to hack, and then went back and started to work on their hypotheses with the problem statement and the solution statement, kind of laying the groundwork and starting to, digest enough to think about over the weekend going into the next week. Day of, we left enough time for the hackers to finalize all of their ideas and aggregate them into presentations. So we kicked off the day fairly early across the time zones and allowed them to hack and work. We brought everybody back together about a half an hour before the live event. And during the live event, we allowed each of the teams to present their findings for 10 minutes. We kept it very carefully timed. We had judges. The other magical part that we introduced was audience voting. And so we made audiences, really kind of look critically at what was being presented and judging them, just, the way the judges were with the parameters that were given, so that we could award 2 prizes. So while the judges were deliberating, we used that transition to allow Yarkin to thank the industry and to, talk about some of the things that we're doing to help support event organizers as they move through the, in many cases, what is their very first virtual event. So we gave him that time and space to get up and thank everybody, to discuss what we were doing. And then we came back on and we announced the audience award winner and the judges award winner, which that was kind of a tricky moment too.
Well, I'm sure we'll eventually get to tell that story when it came to it, because I think that you said that there was a big learning when it came to that one. We talked last time about it. Yarkin, when it kind of came to this moment where, well, I guess before I even get to that, what sort of pieces do you think that were really critical along this entire piece of this hackathon that made this event like really special to everyone?
Yeah, I think one thing to add, I definitely, Corey's summary, I think summarized how we get there pretty well. I think one other thing that I would add is the community that we tried to build around the event hack concept. And it has been how long now since the event hack event, Corey?
It's been about a month.
Yeah, it has been almost a month. And just a few hours ago, I was in our community app trying to see what's going on. And we still had like 20, 30 posts going on even today. I think that's one of the important things as well. Corey, you always say webinar doesn't equal to a virtual event. There's a big difference between those two. And to me, the biggest difference there is the community that you can build around your live event that you usually want to around the webinar. And I think that's also a special thing as well. And for us as a company, that's very valuable, because now whenever we have new content or something new that we want to share with our audience, we can do so using our community. And it's very valuable to them, because they don't only get the chance to get the latest updates from us or the latest news from us, but they also get the chance to interact with each other, learn from each other, because sometimes that could be a lot more powerful than just us providing that content, right? People being able to share each other's knowledge, basically.
That's awesome. I think you bring up something that let's come back to it for sure too, because I think everyone's trying to solve that problem of like post-event engagement, pre-event engagement, and everything like that. And for you guys to continue to have that post-event engagement, I think is huge. What do you think was the single contributing factor to keeping people engaged and sticking around afterwards as well? What do you guys think worked really well?
I think we had the right people pulled together. And I think that there's a lot of value in the pre-event engagement. Having everybody come online and introduce themselves. So in a lot of the Zoom webinars that we've all been on recently that leave the chat open, everyone pops up, hey, I'm Bob from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so the app a couple of days before actually started to see that same phenomenon. And what ended up happening was really cool. We had a lot of people in the app before, during, and after asking questions. And we had people who, we didn't know that were in the app answering the questions. And so there were legitimate conversations that were going on. And so I think that by flowing all of our questions through the app, doing all the polling through the app, and having that as a resource with the right audience, with the right people in there is really what created the success behind what we did.
Yarkin, any other findings you think that contributed?
I couldn't agree more. I think it was, I agree 100%, Corey. I mean, before the event, that engagement started, and after the event, it gets stronger as well as you put in more content, right? I mean, like earlier today, we did another webinar, and we had around 350 attendees there. And I mean, we are driving that engagement and that attendance still using that community there.
It was a virtual event.
Yeah. Yep.
And through the virtual event, we were able to add another, I think for the event hack, we had about 675 people that were actually in our community. And from this latest event, we've been able to add another 150 on top of that. And so it's a community that we're seeing compound and grow event over event. People are all looking for a resource and somewhere to go. So what was really cool, we had the very first in our series of Event Hack Geniuses. We featured two ladies that put on a really cool virtual event. They did some neat things. And so we did kind of a case study where we allowed them to get up and share their tips and tricks and answer some of the really tough questions that people have about how to do it, how to keep sponsors happy, how to charge for attendance. And what was really cool is afterwards, everybody was in the app, as well as the women who produced this virtual event, and they were in there networking with everybody and answering a lot of questions. So that level of engagement is really critical and a big point of differentiation between a webinar and a virtual event. So it was a virtual event, Yarkin.
I love it. I love it. Dude, she's like making sure you get the marketing terms right. By the way, for anyone who is watching right now, if you don't know what a hackathon is and you're confused by what we're even talking about, by the way, I got you. We actually did a whole episode on hackathons and event icons already, like 100 episodes ago. So go check that out, episode 173, where we talk all about hackathons for events and everything like that as well. Also want to give some shout outs to one of our awesome viewers in the audience, Gerardo, for joining us as well. If you're out in the audience, you have questions for our icons, slam them in the comments, and we'd love to hear from them as well. All right, talking about engagement, because I think that's one thing that was really, I think, exciting about the hackathon. Can you talk us through a little bit about how, when you guys were originally doing this was just on, like, as much as Corey says, like, hey, it's not a webinar, it's an event, which it definitely is. It was on a webinar platform, but you guys transformed it and kind of transcended it, I think, because of the engagement. Can you guys talk a little bit about how you guys, aside from the voting at the in the middle part, what are sort of levels of engagement did you guys see and all that sort of stuff? And like, how did engagement work when it came to this event?
Absolutely. It took place in a couple different ways. We saw a lot of engagement happening on Twitter. The chat in Zoom was blowing up. It was really fun to see a lot of people chatting there. And as many people were chatting in that Zoom chat bar, there was equally as many people that were chatting actively in the app. And so with multiple platforms for people to engage in, it was really a nice a nice experience, I think, for the attendees, because they were able to get in and speak with a number of people in the platform that they felt comfortable with. I think as we move forward, more and more people are going to get comfortable communicating in official event apps and official community spaces. But while we're making that transition, I think leaving a couple of platforms open is a really great way, just to make sure that that engagement is there. And actually, before the event, we went through internally and took a hard look at whether or not we wanted to keep the chat open, because that's a mixed bag. But right now, I think that the event industry in particular is so kind and really cheering one another on, that the responses that we were getting in the Zoom chat were so overwhelming. I'm happy that we made the decision to leave that on, because I think that that's part of the magic. Bill, you've got your chat open right now to see everybody's questions and to see, kind of the spirit of what's going on, adds to the energy and adds to the overall event. You do get a couple of people that come in and have some questionable things to say or start promoting themselves. And so we've got one of my marketing guys who is now our new virtual event bouncer. And so we're not afraid to kick people out who kind of cross the line. And so it's part of the new experience. But those were a couple of things that we did to inspire engagement, and I think also bringing the right people on board. And so bringing influencers and bringing our customers that also have a following and kind of a camaraderie helps make it easier to get people talking and keep people, engaging.
Awesome. I love that. I think it was really interesting. And that was one thing I noticed when I was looking at the chat too. I think that people are always worried, what happens if it's open and someone says X, Y, Z and it's that. That chat was people tried to self-promote, and you have no idea how fast the community slammed those people down. They were like, dude, this isn't the place to promote. Yo, they made fun of the person. They made sure that they knew, that is not okay, right? And I'll even say something too, I think that's important for people to know, when you guys ended up, and Yarkin, you're doing your address to the industry, some people are like, well, why is Yarkin, talking right now? And why is the CEO? And this CEO is here and this and that. The chat, came to your defense so fast. And I bet these are people that you've never even met before. And they were totally the community that's surrounded around your guys' event. It was super duper excited. I'm curious to know, Yarkin, you guys chose, and Corey, you mentioned the influencers. What was your guys' because you guys were purposeful about this in choosing influencers to be the event hackers rather than just hey, we'll just get random people who apply or whatever it may be. What was the choice behind the influencers when it came to the strategy of the event?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go ahead and give it a shot. And Corey, please add anything else, because it was you were the mastermind behind that. I think two things very important. We did have some folks from our customer base. We did have some folks that were influencers. So it wasn't necessarily you have to be an influencer in order to hack with us. I think number one is clearly the following is important. We are also there to build a big audience, and I think that really helped us. I think Corey can talk a little bit more about that. The other thing that I would say is, getting an influence in a market and becoming an influencer doesn't happen overnight. You really need to put something out there that's very valuable, that causes people to come and follow you. And I think that's a good barrier to entry for the folks that we wanted to work with as well. We just really wanted to find the right people that could come up with those creative ideas that will help the industry and the community and the following overall. I would say those are the two. Corey, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that there are three different things to consider. I think that, this is a point in time where you can't do it alone. And so being able to bring everybody together is very important. The second point is that as a startup, our audience is only as good as our audience. And so by bringing influencers that have big followings together to do this with us only expands our reach and our opportunity to extend the learnings throughout the entire event community. And then also, very selfishly, I wanted to get the app in everybody's hands in a really authentic way. And so by pairing the influencers with the Fortune 500, enterprise companies, and also including one of our own Socio clients in the groups, it was a really nice mix, because then the client could share, hey, this is the way we use Socio. And then it's not us saying it, it's one of our clients explaining to you guys how it works. And it's just a different level of relationship building, a different level of understanding that comes from hearing it from somebody who's really using it boots on the ground rather than, listening to our marketing pitch. Because at the end of the day, even before COVID, to sit there and listen to somebody's product launch is lame. It's hard to pull off. It's hard to get a big audience to. And so who wants to do that? So this was a really great way to legitimately add value to the community and to also teach people, where Socio fits within the ecosystem.
That's awesome. I think that was one of the most genius things ever too. And I remember Nick Borelli and I, host of Event Brew. If you don't listen to Event Brew, eventbrew.com, go subscribe. Him and I were talking about it. I think as we were leading up to the event, or right after we did like the intro, we're like, man, it's so smart. They're so smart. They just put a bunch of people in the event center who are awesome and hand us the app and said, this is what you're going to use to create your virtual event, or like, this is what you're going to use to communicate. And we all used it. And like, we were all talking about it afterwards. And we like naturally became, evangelists because of this whole process as well, which I think was just like brilliant. When it came to it, one thing I think that was also really interesting too is you brought up the point that it's like, hey, let's put our customers in there too. So the customers talk about like, hey, here's what's going good and all these things like that. What was interesting is we challenged our team, really was like struggling because we're like, okay, so should we mention Socio somewhere in here? Like, oh, I feel really bad. Like if we don't, like, we're like, cause you guys were talking about like what platforms are you going to use and this and that. And we're like, well, we got to include Socio. So you're the ones playing the entire event. And people made fun of me in the chat when I remember when I was saying it. And they're like, oh, brown noser Will over here. But I think it was one of those things that it wasn't forced. It was just like, yeah, like Socio is going to be the obvious choice for the event platform. And I think that it caused, I think, again, this like ripple effect that you guys didn't tell us to do that. We did it on our own, and I think that's what's incredible about it. What was your guys' biggest challenge when it comes to the event, and what would you have totally done differently when it comes to this? Debrief. We'll get the event debrief out of the way.
I will let Corey answer that, but I think
Yarkin's like, it was perfect. Nothing to change. You're good. Corey is incredible. Thank you so much. See you later. Corey, let us know. What was the things that you would change?
One of the things I would definitely change was we had a struggle trying to fit everything into the run of show. We wanted everything to go on time. We didn't want it to run on for 2 hours because in today's day and age, you really can't keep people's attention for that long. So we needed to put together a platform that allowed each of the 4 teams to present for enough time to communicate their ideas. And so what we tried to do to keep it to 10 minutes was only allow 1 presenter, because if you have 4 presenters, then somebody gets long-winded and you run out of time really quickly. But I think that was a big mistake, and Will showed us why. Will is not a rule follower.
Still apologizing, by the way. I'm sorry.
No, I'm very thankful that you did that, because it really showed us the stark contrast between having 1 presenter versus having multiple presenters. So if you're putting together a sales pitch deck or anything, what you want to do is make sure that there's no one speaker for speaking any more than 7 to 8 minutes, because that's where people's attention spans usually tend to drop off. And so if you're frequently changing speakers or changing the platform to go between like video and a presentation, you have to have that in order to keep people focused and to keep people engaged in the content. And so going back, that is one of the biggest things that I would do differently. And Will's team kind of proved that for me right there.
So anyone who didn't know, like Will I didn't know it was a rule that only 1 person, they were like, yeah, pick 1 person to talk. And I was like, I guess I'll do it. And then like we were building on our deck and I was like, man, I just feel bad. Like my teammates are just going to sit here the entire time. I was like, why don't you each take a section and you can all talk? Cause we were just trying to keep our team to that, so everyone was engaged. And so they were just like, all right, so you get this section, you get this section, you get this section. And then, yeah, and I think very quickly we realized, I think after Brian went after us, we're like, why is anyone else doing wait, and then Corey told me after, she's like, by the way, that was a rule. You weren't supposed to have more than 1 speaker. I was like, oh. So yeah, I think the rule I would say too is probably don't let Will be the team leader anymore. Yarkin, what sort of things would you have kind of changed when it comes to the event and things that you would love to see improved for the future?
Yeah, I think there was one big learning point for us on the audience voting versus the judge voting. And correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but I think what happened was we got the judges to select 1 team that won, And then we had another area in the meeting where the audience could vote for the audience pick, the audience winner. And they ended up, I believe, picking the same team. And we really didn't want the same team to win both of them. So we ended up choosing the second most popular on the audience vote. But we didn't really communicate that to the audience. So audience for a second thought that we were just, skipping the winner and going with the second one. Then we explained to the audience, and they did get it. But I thought we could have done a better job during the event with that. And I think if we were to do it again, we would be more careful with the order that we would do things there.
I'll defend you on this one, though. I think that it was the most, honestly, for me as a person on that team, was like, oh, we didn't win. Like, oh God, we got disqualified for something. It like almost made like it really like my heart was just like beating on my chest. I think I told my team, because we got done with the unhang, I was like, I'm done with work. I can't work today. Like, I'm just exhausted now. But yeah, like so like for those who don't know, so our team ended up winning the audience vote and the judges vote, but we gave it you guys gave the audience vote to the people who got second, which by the way, honestly, they were awesome too. Like, these all were incredible teams. So no way am I saying that I deserve two wins, but it was honestly, we were sitting here and our team, they're like, yeah, they didn't pick, and you see the chat just blowing up. Everyone's like, what, wait, the Cure didn't win? They were like outraged in the fact, and I was just like, oh, crazy. And then what was funny though is then I was like, I had this moment where I was like, wait, oh my God, I know what's happening. And then we started messaging each other, and I was like, I think we won the judges vote, and they're giving it, and they and my team didn't believe me. They thought I was crazy. Like, no, we lost, Will. And I was like, I don't think we lost. I don't know. So it was just kind of a crazy moment. So like, it's funny, like how like you guys thought that maybe that could have improved, but I think that also just added to like the drama of it, right? It's kind of like when you're like watching, I don't know, I don't watch reality TV more, but The Bachelor or something like that, and your guy who was definitely the win, who was the best, didn't win, but it turns out that he's going to get disqualified or whatever it may be, or this and that, and it adds just, I think, to the drama to it. So I want to just give you guys some praise that I think it created a fun moment for, and honestly, we still talk about it today too, about it as well. And like you said, like how many people would have a virtual webinar or a virtual event or whatever it may be are talking about it now. Yeah, was it 6 weeks now? 4 or 5 weeks now?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so man, I could have a gazillion questions coming here. So again, audience, ask the questions coming on in as well. What when it comes to doing this kind of hackathon format as well. So obviously you talked about like maybe, for example, maybe allowing more people to speak. How do you what's your goal as far as how you're going to evolve this moving forward? So for example, you guys' first goal was to like, hey, let's have people come up with ideas for events and what is possible when it comes to virtual and achieving that goal. And then obviously like there's going to be a new topic in the future, but how would you change maybe the actual, or I don't know the right question, I guess I'm asking, but can you give us a little bit more insight into like the framework of what I think people aren't seeing, which is like what us as teams were working on in the behind the scenes? Because I think that's the part that people get like the presentations to win, and they understand kind of like okay, we put people in team, but like what happens inside of those, and what would you have changed or updated when it comes to that format of the actual hackathon itself, and what was happening for that like 4 or 5 hours when we were just in Zoom rooms by ourselves?
Yeah, I think that in the future, we would leave more time. I mean, we did this in 15 days. There were 11 business days. So leaving more time to plan it, I think, would have been great. And allowing more time, I think, for the teams to hack, not the day of. So that is one of the things. And I think it goes along with one of the big conversations that's happening in the industry right now. Do you pre-record or do you go live? And I would still go live. I think that there's an element of suspense and drama that we saw very clearly play out with, who won. But I would give the teams a little bit more time to organize themselves and organize the thoughts, because we had such amazing people in each of those teams that brought so many great ideas to the table that I think we could have built those out a little bit further. and expanded them more. So I would give the teams a little bit more time. I would still keep it live. And then for the next time, I would upgrade the production quality. We did this still pretty early on in kind of the grand scheme of the pandemic and doing virtual events. So we didn't have, the great lighting. We didn't have the great mics. And, it was kind of our first go. I started with Socio in January. And so my marketing team is small but mighty. And this is the first event that we pulled together. So, we had a lot of learnings about just, how to work behind the scenes and how to make efficient use of the back channels, which was blowing up during, the voting session. So there are some, I think, production quality things that as an event tech company, we would upgrade as well.
Awesome. What about you, Yarkin? What would you say is the big things that you would change when it comes the internals of the virtual event? I honestly think I would love to have seen you come and hang out with us for a couple minutes when we were coming through and be like, no, this idea sucks. You were be like, oh God, we got to work harder. Yarkin said it was bad. All these things like that. What would you change, Yarkin, when it comes to the process of the actual hackathon itself?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Corey. I think if we had a little bit more time to plan, we could have invested a little bit more into the production quality. To be very honest with you, I really liked the process that we went through, and I ended up I don't really have much that I would change. I think one thing that Corey and her team did very well that I think we will keep doing in our future events as well was the way we structured the schedule of the stream at the end of the day. I mean, our drop-off rates, Corey, I don't know if you remember, but people weren't dropping at all. People actually stick with it throughout the entire event, and definitely because the speakers and the hackers were giving out amazing content and amazing tips. But I think it was also due to the way that Corey's team planned the schedule. I think really led to that as well. I don't know if I would change much except the production quality once again, as Corey said.
Awesome.
Yeah, the hook at the end, getting people invested by voting and then having the suspense of, oh my goodness, who won after they're invested into the team that they think will win was really great. And then I think the only other thing I would add in is some video shots of your team's, hacking, and use that as part of our opening, session, or somehow weave that in, because I think that, as we're upgrading our production value, to be able to kind of pre-produce some of that and splice that in would be a really great multi-platform or mixed media look at behind the scenes to give people a little bit more of a peek, as to what the teams were actually going to and what that looked like during the planning and during the hacking.
Definitely. And I think I was gonna say, when you do the post-production and the pre-production, a little bit of work too, it also allows you to afford you to have a little bit of a break too, because poor Nina, she had to keep talking and then and then Yarkin got done with it, and it's are the judges right? Okay, we got to buy this time. But you do bring up a good point that it was very interesting how the format itself, though, helped solve so many issues, because I don't know many presentations period where if there would have been 2 minutes of silence, or there wasn't 2 minutes of silence, felt maybe like that forever for us, but a minute of silence while you're waiting to figure out what's going on, and there's kind of some logistics going back and forth. I'm sure Nina's calling you guys on the phone while she's muted and doing all these things like that, but the audience was just in the chat blowing up, and everyone's just who's gonna win? Oh my gosh, we're just so excited on there. So it's funny how I think that now you're taking something that has good content value and then enhancing it, versus I think sometimes people take lower content value and they try to enhance it on there as well. I'm curious to know, everyone wants to talk about ROI, right? Especially the ROI of these virtual events. And I've talked a lot to you guys since this all happened, so I know there's awesome value that's kind of come from this. Can you guys talk a little bit about, from your standpoint? And I'm going to kick it over to Yarkin, because you're the big boss, right? You're the one coming down saying, you gotta have ROI for me to pull this off, and all these resources. We pulled 20 people in, a couple days of work, all these things like that. What did the ROI mean for you, and kind of what did that process look like in your brain?
Yeah, great timing. We always talk about ROI here in Socio. Being a smaller team, we have around 70 people in our team. Being still a smaller team, we need to make sure that we are utilizing our resources smartly, and ROI is a good way to see if we are doing so. I think, well, first of all, was it ROI positive? Absolutely. It was by far, in my opinion, and let's see what Corey thinks, one of the smartest and highest ROI campaigns we have had, specifically when you look at the initial investment, right? And it of course also helps us being an event technology company. We know how to put these things together as well. But I think it was extremely ROI positive, and the ripple effect is still going on right now. Not only are we getting pricing requests, demo requests because of this, but it's also helping us push our existing pipeline forward as well. So if you have seen a demo of Socio and you're interested in potentially moving forward after you watch this, we can really build that trust and the brand value. I think that is very critical. And the community piece, like I said earlier, if you become a part of this community, it also becomes a huge value add of being a Socio customer. It's because you are a part of this community and we are here for you, not only as a company, but as a community. So I would say it's one of the highest ROI campaigns we have ever done. What do you think, Corey?
Well, did I tell you how much we spent on this?
I don't think you ever did tell me this. No, not at all. Are you willing to say it on the podcast?
Absolutely. Not including the Zoom cost, which we had to upgrade a number of different times because I think we ended up with more than 3,000 total registrations. Live, we had about 2,000 people live through most of the event. I spent $1,100.
All right, mic drop. And that's this week's episode of Event Icons. See you guys later. Wow. Who out there can say that they had an event that had 3,000, just contacts alone? That means you guys are spending oh my God, yeah, less than, 30 cents a contact? Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is so not fair. Great campaign for sure. So even if you just look at that, and to give people an idea, most in the event technology space, $1,000, $2,000 cost per acquisition for a customer or something like that? Maybe it costs you $2, $3 for a click on an ad alone. So to say you got for 30 cents is crazy awesome.
And right now, revenue in, we're sitting at about a 15x.
Wow.
And the pipeline is just beyond.
That's awesome.
And
that's awesome.
I think your sweatpants were the most costly item in the.
Oh, so that was all the swag cost was the only thing that was. Wow, that's crazy. So if you guys hadn't sent swag to us, which I don't think any of us were expecting to get swag for presenting. We would have probably be even next to nothing. That's incredible.
No, if it weren't for the swag, we would have just had the Zoom cost.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So what do you think? Wow. I don't even know how to follow up that question. I think that is probably a good way to start to wrap up this week's episode. But let's go to I normally have a bazillion other questions, but I think that's just a great way to think about it. It's how you've gone through this at all. And yeah, so the audience members say that's super duper awesome as well. So let's start to wrap up this way. I looked at the clock and realized man, an hour flies by hanging out with you guys. Let's go into our last two questions I always love to ask. Right. So knowing all of this and what you guys have kind of put together, if you had to give one tip to planners when it comes to producing a virtual event, what would be your one tip for them? I'll go to Corey. It looks like Yarkin's deep in thought.
I would say that you should think about your strategy first, because really at the end of the day, the magic of the event comes from the event organizer's creativity. Don't freak out about how to pull together a virtual event. It's simply the how. And so the app, the live streaming tool, whatever you use is simply the delivery mechanism to get your event experience in people's hands. It's still up to the event organizers and professionals to bring that magic sauce and take a look at what they're trying to accomplish and reverse engineering now how to accomplish that in a virtual setting.
I love it. Preach strategy, preach. Yarkin, what's your one tip for planners out there in the world?
Yeah, I think take a step back and really ask yourself and look and understand the why behind your event, right? More than the how, which I agree with Corey 100%. the tools that you're using, the delivery mechanism, these things could change. I think you really need to understand why and what does my audience need. And then figuring out how, in my opinion, is the easy part. It's all about the why.
I like it. Doubling down on the strategy. I'm a huge fan of this right now. Wow. Well, okay. So you guys are like, you guys are like awesome. You guys understand technology so well, and you guys are just like huge creators of content. So I'm gonna give you guys a chance to promote some of the cool socio stuff you guys got coming down the pipeline. But before we do that, what are your guys' like favorite resources? Where do you guys go to learn about events or learn about anything in general? What are your favorite things, apps, books, blogs, all those favorite resources that you guys want to share with everybody?
I really enjoy your blog. I read EventMB quite a bit. And I think that the Twitter community right now for events are amazing. And then, of course, the socio community right now is also blowing up.
That's awesome. And what hashtags are you following on Twitter these days?
Event profs, event orgs, pivot to virtual.
Nice.
Yeah, pivot to virtual is a gem. At this point, that's where I'm also seeing the latest content and getting it delivered to my email as well. But yeah, EventMB, I'm a big fan of what they're doing as well.
Awesome. I love it. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to check out hashtag pivot to virtual because I'm not even watching that one as well. So I'll see you guys over in pivot to virtual for sure. Awesome. All right. Well, I want to give you guys a chance to also talk about, because you guys are producing so much epic content and like so much cool stuff now. And what sort of stuff do you guys have coming down the pipeline that you want to tell everybody about? Where do people go to find about Socio? You know, all that cool stuff. I'm gonna give you guys a quick chance to do some hashtag promotion.
Check us out at socio.events. We have a number of really great upgrades that we've made to our platform to allow streaming. And actually, I'd like Yarkin to tell you about the streaming within the iframe that we have, so you can do both a desktop and a mobile experience, because what they've done is really insane. And so the reason why we have such great evangelists is because the product is solid.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. So Yarkin, she teased you. What crazy stuff? You're like the product guy. So tell about all the cool product stuff you got coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, I am pretty product focused. I really believe that that's really the core, right? Just like you can throw together a virtual event, no matter how good your the production quality is, the content at its core has to be very good. And I think the same applies to companies as well. At the end of the day, if your product isn't just amazing, no matter what you do, it's not going to end up being great. So yeah, we have been working very hard since the start of this to really pivot to virtual. Even before this, we have been supporting in-person, virtual, and hybrid events. But with this, the digital transformation happened just so fast that we had to really make sure that we are on top of it. Now, all of our products, what we call our virtual event suite, works completely virtually, and for hybrid events as well. We are platform agnostic. So if you're using Zoom or GoToMeeting or Vimeo or Facebook, LinkedIn Live, whatever you're using, you can go ahead and embed that right into our platform. And our platform really becomes the hub of your event and allows you to build more than just a webinar or more than just a live event, but a community around it as well. So very exciting updates. Come to socio.events, chat with us. We'll be happy to hear your story, understand your business, and see how we could help you accelerate.
I love it. And if you haven't yet, too, go check out their blog. They got a lot of awesome content too. So, you know, one of my favorite blogs as of lately as well. So definitely, if you're looking for an endorsement, thank you. I appreciate the endorsement. I'll endorse you back on the content side, Corey. Well,
next week we're going to be together again.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, a familiar face named Will Curran is going to be on doing some stuff together with Socio. So stay tuned, everybody. Some good stuff. All right.
With us too.
Yes. Yes. All right. So let's wrap this one up. Corey, Yarkin, thank you guys so much for coming on this week's episode of Event Icons.
Thank you for having us. This is awesome.
Will, thanks for having us. It was amazing.
You guys are so welcome. Seriously, so many like knowledge bombs. And I just love how you guys figured out a way to take $1,100 and just explode its ROI completely. And also create this lasting, awesome legacy of awesome events that you guys have produced. So thank you guys so much for coming on. And thank you to the audience. I'll give some quick shout outs to a couple people that I can see really, really quickly on here. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Gerardo, Juhi, Shanti. Thank you guys so much for watching as well. And yeah. And if you're watching this in the recording, what are you doing? You got to join us live. Make sure to head over to event-icons.com. Subscribe today. Don't miss another episode. We got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. If you came live and you missed half the episode, event-icons, catch the full recording so you can get all these guys awesome knowledge bombs and smartness, and that's why we bring them on the show. Anyways, I'm losing thoughts for words. Let's get out of here. Thank you guys all for tuning into this week's episode of Event Icons. We'll see you guys all next week on Event Icons.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #Event Icons.
To catch all the bonus content, resources mentioned, and an invite to our Facebook and LinkedIn groups,
Head to www.event-icons.com. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway. Just tag your post with #Event Icons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #Event Icons.